How about, because they just were like, how about like, hey, all you campers and gold prospectors? Okay. If you need me, I'll just be back here, man. Just sitting on the rest of my good ideas.
I mean, I guess that... Well...
Chitra, is that right? What is it?
Chitara,
okay.
Oh, boy.
Here we go. I got the giggles.
God, this is going to be good.
Hey, all you Lino lovers and Chitara fans. Welcome back to That Would Be Rad, a podcast that majors in 80s and 90s nostalgia, comic culture, all things paranormal, and minors in retro video games, tabletop RPGs, pre-internet mysteries, and raising our kids to be half as cool as we were back in the 80s. We are your hosts, Woody Brown.
And Tyler Bence. How's it going, man?
Hey, pretty good, except for I am just stumbling all over my words today. But what else is new?
I mean, I think I botched the last one, so...
So...
What's that?
Like we were saying before the podcast started, my kids have really been getting into Thundercats lately.
It's been a long time.
Dude, first off, it's super corny. It's so hilarious how corny these old shows are. Man, it's actually, like, I remember now, like, I actually liked Thundercats, I think, better than He-Man.
Oh, I definitely did. And actually, I think that, hold on, I'm trying to adjust my microphone here.
But I never understood. Go ahead, sorry.
I think I actually even preferred Silverhawks more than Thundercats.
I remember Silverhawks, and I remember liking it, and I had the toys and everything. I just don't remember. I think I watched Thundercats more or something, because I remember more of that. The one thing that always bugged me, though, was every single one of them have like a name that, you know, is reminiscent of the animal that they are, right?
Yeah.
And then there's, what's his name?
Panthro?
Yeah, and he's gray. And he doesn't even look like a panther.
Yeah, but I'm sure that was a...
I mean, they can't have like a panther-looking character on there, I guess, because it would just get lost.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like the being an artist and like being a designer for years. It sort of equips you with the knowledge of like dealing with like customers. Like I did a lot in the area of like branding and logo design and that kind of thing. So it's a constant like compromise, you know? And so there's little things that I can look at that it's like, oh yeah, that was definitely like an art department decision, you know? But I mean, I still think it looks pretty good though.
Yeah, it looks cool. It's just when I just even remember as a kid that bugging me and being like, I mean, bluish gray is not a panther.
Well, I will say this though, and this is kind of a comic book trick dating way back. Anytime you have like black hair, and I don't know how many of you have noticed this, but like anytime an artist is drawing like black hair, obviously they do, you know, heavier black, what's called fill areas. So, you know, it's a little more like, you know, filled with black. But then the open areas in comic books are filled with the color blue. And then that, you know, that's kind of the areas that would be sort of your highlight areas, like your, you know, the light would be reflecting. So they have blue. And I think they originally did that, you know, in the old days, because they only had like so many colors. So they couldn't process like a lighter highlight, so then they would add in like the blue and it would kind of work, and then, you know, along the way it just became what you did. And even now, even some of the stuff that I've done, my colorist Bill Crabtree, he's amazing. He's done like
he's awesome.
Six Gun. He's working on a book called Crimson Flower with Matt Kent and Matt Lesniewski. I get his name wrong every time, but he's on Inky Knuckles with me, the art rep that I have, but he's amazing, and you know, it's that same thing. He still does the blue for black hair, so
it's cool.
Oh, one thing about those cartoons, especially that era, one thing that I think is so cool is it's like you can always tell the difference in like the intro art, and it's almost always, you know, high level studio like Japanese artist, because it just looks amazing, and then. You know, then it kind of like gets a little dumbed down once it gets for the actual episodes.
I mean, I guess because they had to like scale it, you know?
Oh, yeah. There was another cartoon, which is not a lot of people know about. And even now, it's really kind of hard to find a lot of information about it. But there was a cartoon that I was obsessed with, and there were toys and everything. But I only ever saw it when I would go to my dad's house every other weekend in Athens, Georgia, and it came on at like 6:30 in the morning, and it was called Bionic 6.
Oh, yeah,
dude,
man, I remember that.
It is such an amazing cartoon. I mean, and the intro is like one of the coolest. It's just, it looks amazing. The artwork's brilliant, and like the costuming is straight up. I mean, it literally, I hate to say this because I love Jim Lee, but there is no way that Jim Lee did not rip the costuming for the Uncanny X-Men costumes. If you've never seen Bionic 6, go look it up because it's really cool.
Well, and what was cool too is watching that first episode of Thundercats, because both my kids were like, well, Woodrow had heard of it, but my youngest was just kind of like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, you've never heard of Thundercats? Well, let's watch one episode, because they're like 20 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
It's no big deal. And watching that origin episode, I completely forgot about
the nudity.
No. I've completely forgot about the fact that they came, like Lino was young before they traveled into space or whatever, and he ends up getting old in that little like sleep chamber thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he becomes like a quote unquote adult, and then just like give me sight beyond sight, like just stuff like that I hadn't heard in forever. I'm like, God, this is so rad, man.
Yeah, that stuff's really cool. And that's the thing that I think that we lost a little in the 80s is that, some of the themes were pretty advanced and pretty cool. I feel like as we've progressed, I mean, I'm a girl dad. I have 2 little girls. And so we don't watch a lot of those sort of, boy cartoons or whatever. But I can say, while I think the art and like the computer animation has sort of advanced, I think story-wise that it's just like even more dumbed down for, it's like, oh, we gotta do this thing for kids, so make sure it's just like, there's no sort of subtlety.
Like they don't get into like any lore really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And honestly, not to kick this up again, but honestly, I think that was one of my problems with Wonder Woman 1984. I feel like that was the same kind of approach. It's like, we get it. It's Wonder Woman. This has been a character that we've all known about for 100 years. When you mentioned that you showed the kids the first episode, and I said, I brought up the nudity part, I wasn't kidding. That's actually a thing where I think almost the whole first episode, when you see Chitara
does.
She's literally naked the whole time.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, she's got fur, but yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, pretty funny.
It's on. I think we saw it on Hulu. You should check it out, man. Especially that first episode, just to be reminded of that origin story, because it's really cool.
That is cool. I always thought Mumra was a cool villain too. He looked great. I used to have the toy. You could like push the thing on his back, and he would his eyes would light up.
Yeah, really I used to have all those toys too. The only survivors now are like that big fat lizard dude.
Oh, I don't remember
that. He's one of the main bad guys. You would remember him the second you see him. I'll text a picture. And then the other one that I have that survived is Panthro, of course.
For some reason, I don't think I ever had any of the good guys at all. I did have the little weaselly copper metal guy from Silverhawks, though. I had that toy.
Yeah, I've got that one still. Dude, you know what I want to talk about, man?
What's that?
Some folks would like ask, well, man, all right, dude. Yeah, okay, so you had to stay in bed with the coronavirus. That sucks. But at least you're able to like binge a bunch of new shows. Mm-hmm. What did you see? And I have to say I slept the majority of those, 2 weeks. I'm still kind of like daily, still kind of like getting wiped out around like just after lunch, essentially. But the answer is I didn't binge any new shows. In fact, I actually got a chance to binge one of my favorite all-time shows ever, man. And that is Columbo.
Oh, God. I've never seen a single episode.
Dude, I know people probably think I'm joking around, but I'm not joking. That is literally, I think, my favorite show of all time.
Well, it's funny because a ton of like actors and artists and stuff that I'm a fan of, They always talk about Columbo being so great.
Really?
And I've never seen it, but...
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, I feel like I'm the only, like myself and then like my grandparents and maybe my parents are the only people I know that even talk about it, really. Nobody like our age. I never see anyone talk about it, but it's just excellent, dude. I mean, I love the way that they start the show. And by the way, like these were like the Friday night murder mystery or whatever. Yeah. And so they were like almost in some ways like feature length episodes. And so like it's like an hour and a half long, 2 hours long with commercials.
So was this running around the same time as like Murder, She Wrote? Because that was another big one.
Maybe. I don't know. I want to say that the first couple of episodes or the first season was, back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. But it ran for like a long time into like the early 2000s, man. And I don't really like most of the modern ones, truthfully. I like the first maybe like 8 seasons. Obviously if you've never seen it, it stars Peter Falk, who he's also written one of my favorite autobiographies. He's just an awesome person and a cool character. But the Columbo character alone is just one of my favorite in television. And the way that they did it, the show starts off showing you, the audience, you're basically, you witness the murder happening.
Oh, okay? I like that.
And then after all that, so like the first like 30 minutes is, Columbo's not even in it. You're watching whatever's about to go down and why it goes down, and you watch the person commit the crime, the murder, and then cover it up and cover their tracks and all this kind of stuff. And then basically after that commercial break, here comes Columbo. And he pulls in this ratty old car, and he comes out and he's kind of disheveled, and he appears to, especially the criminal, as just like kind of a bumbling sort of not important person that's just kind of like not quite with it,
And that's,
there's no way.
That's like his thing, right?
Yeah, and you can never really tell if it's hard to explain. It's like you never really know. My wife and I were kind of talking about this because since she was forced to be bedridden as well, believe it or not, I actually got her into the show, and so she binged it with me.
Does she like it? Is she into it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, I mean, would she choose to watch Columbo over any other option? Probably not.
Over Housewives of New Hampshire?
Yeah, or whatever. But, in several instances, she was like, oh, man, we got to finish that episode because you wanted to see what happens. Because, like, really, the most amazing thing after you've witnessed this murder and stuff and you know what happened is to watch Columbo unravel it. And then throughout that time, you're like, does he know right now? Because he seems to, I feel like the moment he steps foot on the scene, he already kind of has figured it out in his head. And then at that point, he just kind of starts toying with the bad guy. And it's just so awesome to watch.
And now is he he's like a detective?
Yeah.
Or like a PI?
No, he's a detective. He works for the Los Angeles Police Department.
Okay, cool.
Lieutenant Columbo. And so most of the murders and stuff typically deal with, super wealthy folks, but not all the time. But, it's unique in that, especially back then when they came out, I think it was the only one that would start that way. You get to watch what would typically be the mystery. And then after that, you get to watch Columbo figure it out and then just, just wear this person down, and the famous line, just when the person thinks they're like safe, Columbo will come with like a bunch of questions, like, hey, where were you on this day or whatever? And they're like, oh, come on, that's easy. And then Columbo will be like, oh, yeah, you're right. God, what was I thinking? And then he'll be leaving and the murder just feels like, okay, whew, I made it, this is it. And then as Columbo like either leaves or he has just walked out the door, he comes back and he's like, just one more thing.
I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am. I just wanted to ask you one more question.
What is it?
And that's like his famous line. And he'll ask him other questions. And dude, it's so good, man.
Man, you kind of got me excited about watching Columbo now.
Yeah.
Those words have never been said by anyone.
If you dive into like season 1, for example, just know, just like we've talked about other things, the pacing.
Oh, yeah.
It, is super
totally
slow.
different.
That 70s and early 80s style. Like they'll do some like artistic things that you're like, boy, that was just like a slow fade into a scene that's just like the exterior of a hospital. So in other words, it's like super blurry, and it comes into focus, but nowadays that would be like a quick 10-second ordeal.
Now it's like a full minute.
This is like a full 2 minutes of just a slow coming into focus, and you're like, God. And then it's just the exterior of a hospital. It's like, what? That has nothing to do with the story other than that's where the victim. You know what I mean?
Talking about vintage, poor pacing, that's really funny because as the listeners know, we have been watching a lot of 80s movies lately, and boy, you really forget a lot of those super long, drawn-out sort of techniques that, that now is like a jump cut, 2 seconds, and it's gone.
So that's just kind of like a fair warning. If you dive into it, just kind of be a little on the slow side.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, really, man, even though it's cool that they do it that way and they show you the murder first, I got to be honest, sometimes, and it gets on Anne's nerves because she's like, no, I want to watch that part. I kind of skip to just when Columbo comes on the scene. That's what I want to see. I want to see him just take this person down because it's just so good.
So now, as someone who's never even seen a single episode, does he kind of provide like the comedic relief or like the charisma kind of thing?
Yeah, both, man. But it's weird. It's like he's just such a funny character, man. Like he'll do this thing where he like shows up. He looks like he hasn't slept in forever. And everyone's wanting to tell him, oh, good, because he's such a sought-after, like, detective that solves it every time. Mm-hmm. The police force on the scene and stuff, people that are there, they're like, oh, good, Columbo. And they're starting to fill him in on something, and they're giving him all these details, and he looks like he's listening, but then he's like, did you say there was coffee in here? And then that, and then the guy's like, huh? Or he'll have, like, this boiled egg, right? And he's always kind of like searching in his like trench coat to find the right thing. And then he'll just like pull out this boiled egg. And this one scene, dude, was just so hilarious. This young police officer was like, hey, Lieutenant, sir, I think, this could be one of the murder weapons in a scenario where the person wasn't bludgeoned or anything. Mm-hmm. So clearly Columbo knows that that's not a murder weapon. But so this kid's holding this like tire iron, and Columbo is just like, okay, yeah, and then he's like, one second, because the kid's about to leave, and he's like, whoa, hold on, and he's like searching around his pockets. He pulls out this boiled egg, and he's like, come here with that thing, and he just taps his boiled egg on this tire iron,
That's awesome.
And it's like just little stuff like that. So it's both like he provides the everything, man. Mm-hmm. It's just really cool to see him outsmart the person that a lot of times, man, does a really good job at covering their tracks. Mm-hmm. And it's just so cool, man.
So is it all sort of like anthology based? Could you just jump in any episode?
Yep.
Cool.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, man, they're like little mini movies that you can just watch. None of them are related to the other, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's something that, I don't know, I wish there were more of that. I mean, a lot of my favorite things are that way. It's like, which you've got to read the Hellboy stuff, but like the Hellboy trades are like that. The Batman Black and White is like that. It's just like little vignettes, and I think it's cool just to see sort of like, okay, I'm going to take 10 pages and throw this character in like a random time and in a random sort of situation and just see what happens. I think that stuff's cool.
It is cool, man. You're right. There's not really a lot of that. I guess there's more like anything they do like that nowadays is more like anthology series, right? Like the American Horror stuff. And
well, I guess Black Mirror is like that.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah. Like American Horror Stories, it's like per the series, which is pretty cool. Speaking of that, I started watching 1984.
Yeah.
Which, is that the most recent one?
I think so, man. I don't know. I've never watched any of them.
Man, I've tried several times. There's just something about, it's weird because like I love horror stuff, but there's something about it that's like so just over the top. I don't know. I don't know. It never totally like grabs me, even though when I see like a new one come out, it's like, oh man, I got to check that out. I always watch like an episode or two, and then it just doesn't. It's not very lasting to me or something, you know. But yeah, no, I started watching the 1984 one, and I really liked it because it had this sort of 80s thrasher or 80s slasher vibe, and but then it's like I don't know. It's like they had the tone, and it was cool, and then it just kept going so over the top. So sort of
like over the top cliche 80s stuff, or just like
almost like they had the 80s stuff down, and then because it's new, it's like it takes itself very, very seriously. So it's like okay, now this person's gonna die. Now it's not really this person, it's another person. It just like, I don't know. It was just too much. It's almost like it would have worked. I mean, to me anyway. Like, maybe everybody else thinks it was great, but to me it would have worked as like a single hour and a half, 2 hour deal instead of spreading it out over an entire season kind of thing.
Okay. And so like, how are these built? Are they like mysteries? I mean, it sounds like it's kind of like a mystery or something.
I mean, this one, for example, is kind of like a, like sleepaway camp, really.
Oh, okay.
But then it just, I don't know. I think the thing that makes those 80s movies so sort of special is they are kind of, they are cheesy, which I think they did a good job with that. But they don't take themselves seriously, and I think they were even at like the height of those movies, I think there was still a self-awareness of like, yeah, we know that this is kind of cheesy, but that's why we love it. You know what I mean? And this that was what was missing in this.
Now I'm gonna have to watch it to see if I agree.
I mean, I think you'll really like it. The first 2 or 3 episodes, because I think I even texted you and I was like, dude, this is awesome. But I don't know, it just keeps going.
Yeah. So I mean, do you want to talk about these two movies that we watched, these two 80s fantasy movies that we watched, that we pit against each other to find out ultimately?
Yeah, I think so.
Who turns out to be the champion?
One thing before we get into that is a
quick break and a word from our sponsors.
We will return after these messages.
Tyler, man, there's one thing that got me through this COVID craziness. I got in the mail a couple of items from our merch store. And I got to tell you, man, this crew neck sweater is maybe one of the most comfortable things I've ever worn. The inside of it is like, I don't know how to explain it, man. I'm never going to take this thing off.
Wait a minute, we have sweaters?
Oh, yeah. We've got sweaters, hoodies.
Wait, sweaters?
T-shirts. Huh?
Like knit sweaters?
Sweatshirt. Come on. Dang it, man. Okay.
Just go with it.
I mean, you know what I'm saying. Sweatshirts. This sweatshirt is the most comfortable thing I have ever put on. I also got this like really cool trucker cap that says B-Rad on it. I mean, I think if people haven't already, they need to go check out our merchandise store. They can find it at shop.spreadshirt.com/thatwouldberad. So again, that's shop.spreadshirt.com/thatwouldberad.
You're listening to That Would Be Rad.
All right, dude, let's dive in. Here's the thing. We decided a couple months ago to kind of put together a list of, for a couple different reasons, but a list of 80s fantasy movies that we enjoyed when we were kids.
Yeah.
And then we were going to kind of put them up against each other and see who came out and emerged as what we would consider, for this matchup, I guess, the champion of all these movies. One of the reasons is because, again, kind of getting back into Dungeons and Dragons a couple months ago, we just had this like influx of like wanting to consume anything like that, like fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, all those movies and stuff. So that's the reason behind it. But it's funny because, well, I'll get to that in just a second. So the two that we watched this past week and that we're going to figure out today, The Beastmaster, which came out in 1982, and then Krull, that's Krull for anybody unfamiliar with it, which came out in 1983. Now, you and I, for the listener, I think it's important that they know, Tyler and I have not discussed our own individual thoughts about these two movies yet because we wanted to save it for when we had already hit the record button. So, do you want me to start first in my thoughts about Krull and the Beastmaster?
Well, let me just say this, and then you probably want to follow up with the same sort of sentiment. But so I was really pushing Krull because I remember this as a kid, and I remember just being obsessed with it. I remember thinking it was the greatest thing ever. I didn't remember a lot about it, but I remember his, he has this cool weapon kind of thing. So yeah, so I was really, really excited to get into Krull. Just know that.
Yeah, and I mean, I had never seen it. In fact, I'd never even heard of it. And so, like, just looking at the poster art for when it came out,
Which is amazing.
It looked really cool.
Yeah.
And right out of the gate, I got to say this. One, I don't know how it snuck into our fantasy face-off in general because it's really kind of like fantasy / sci-fi.
Yeah.
In fact, it might even lean mostly toward sci-fi.
Which I had totally forgotten about.
So, I guess maybe if I had seen it back in the day, maybe I would have remembered that, the fact is that it kind of occurs in a fantasy setting, but it is heavily sci-fi.
Yeah. I would almost say, sorry to cut you off. Well, I'm not sorry.
What else is new, pal?
I would almost venture to say that it was trying to be like Star Wars more than an actual fantasy movie.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because it came out in 83. I think they obviously filmed, there's a lot of, and we'll get into who all kind of like is in the movie, but there's a lot of British, especially famous British actors that are in it. I think they filmed it over there. And so, truthfully, I bet if we looked at all of the crew list, all of the extras list, there's probably a lot of folks that were in the Star Wars movies as well.
Sort of overlap.
And I don't know if, there is a lot of, it's kind of got that vibe, like if people go back and watch Masters of the Universe, it's got that, which is a movie about He-Man that doesn't really have almost anything to do with anything the cartoons ever had. But, it's almost like they wanted to capitalize on that Star Wars fandom. Yeah. But we're still kind of, they've got like their foot in each, kind of camp. And they can't, this movie, in my opinion, can't decide what it wants to be, except for they're just like, I got an idea, man. I like swords and shields and bows and arrows. Oh, yeah. But I also like Star Wars. So what if we just did something that like was both? Yeah. Which on paper that sounds pretty cool. Oh, but I got to say, man, it was hard for me to get through this movie. Yeah. Now there were a couple cool moments, that I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Like towards the end, there's this scene where they're just like riding, to go and fight the bad guys or whatever, and they're on these horses, and they're like just like their hooves and stuff are like on fire, and that I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. The Cyclops character was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and also I gotta say, I mean, halfway. So the only thing that we've talked with each other about regarding this is, I get a text from what he's saying. So far, I think I like Beastmaster better. And so, and as a kid, I was never really like a Beastmaster, a huge fan. Like I remember watching it, but I remember it a lot less. Like I felt like I probably saw that when I was much younger, so I wasn't like really into it. But I was a little offended when you sent that. And I was like, oh, just wait. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. But I gotta say,
dude, that's so funny. I was the exact opposite. My brother and I, we were obsessed with the Beastmaster and the Beastmaster 2. I just loved it back then. So I knew it was going to be tough. And even rewatching that, it's still 80s, right? And so you have to kind of go into it kind of understanding that it's going to be cheesy. The effects aren't going to be super realistic. Yeah. But all in, I mean, okay, let's stick on Krull for just a second. So some of the folks that are in it, like big names now, Liam Neeson is in it. Francesca, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I think it's Amos. She plays Lady Jessica in Dune, which you haven't seen still, but she plays Paul Atreides' mother, basically, in the 80s Dune movie.
Which what else was she in? Because I immediately recognized her.
She's in a bunch of stuff. I don't remember anything else. I just knew her from Dune, like right away. And then the guy, Robbie Coltrane, who everyone will remember as Hagrid from Harry Potter.
Wait, which one?
He doesn't have a beard, which is probably why you didn't recognize him in this movie, but he's like super young.
What character was he?
Gosh, man, I don't know his name in the movie.
Tor or something.
I don't know.
And did you see anything on like the Cyclops guy? Because I feel like I've seen him. I mean, obviously he doesn't have a real, he's not a real Cyclops, but I feel like I've seen that guy before too.
I didn't take the time to research that, man. To me, it was just kind of like the plot was all over the place. It's kind of telling that none of the main characters, like the lead male actor or the lead female actress, really did anything else. I just thought like it was tough to get through. Like I wanted it to be like there's some cool parts, right? And if you're a little kid, I can see totally why it's like, oh man, that's cool. They're blocking lasers with a sword, and you're like, well, okay.
Well, also like like what I said earlier about it trying to be Star Wars. So a couple things. Number one, like all of the sword battles were with regular swords, but they had electricity, kind of like lightsabers. All the bad guys, which were called the Slayers, were, I guess they were like
aliens, right?
Yeah, they were like sort of like robots, but then once they were killed, like this little alien thing would shoot out. That was weird. And also, if you're a fan of R2-D2, when he like gets burned or gets shot or something, and he makes that like, we'll put the sound in. But if you like that sound, that's the sound that you heard every single time one of the villains were killed.
Oh yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, man.
Every single time was that. It was crazy. Another thing that I was so disappointed in, and because, the main thing that I had remembered was that sort of star, like spinning blade thing. And he doesn't even, oddly enough, there's 20 battles with, the Slayers and all these other characters. And then right at the last bit of the movie, all of a sudden he pulls out this weapon. It's like, where the hell has that been?
Yeah, no, I think there's like some scene where as you can tell, like that's how invested I was in this thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even, it just lost me.
Yeah.
But dude, in comparison to, I think obviously it's pretty clear in our minds that.
Well, let's get into, before we get
let me talk a little bit about the Beastmaster.
Yeah.
So for me, obviously better acting, better quality, better actors, man. It's got Rip Torn, for God's sakes. It's got Marc Singer, and if you don't know him from the Beastmaster, he was the guy that played the lead character in the TV series V back in the 80s, which I was obsessed with whenever I was a kid. It scared me to death, but I watched it. And then, who else? I feel like, John Amos, the dad from Good Times. You'll know him whenever you see him. And then,
yeah, he's awesome.
And his character's amazing.
Yeah, he's like a monk almost. He's the guy. Immediately, I recognize him as the dad from Coming to America.
Yeah.
The restaurant, he owns McDougal's.
Yeah. Dude. And then also, rest in peace recently, Tanya Roberts from Charlie's Angels, who recently passed away, like, I don't know, just like a few days ago or something, by the time.
And that's the girl?
This airs, and it'd be several weeks. Yeah.
Dang,
and
man.
boy, she is just gorgeous.
Yeah,
man.
she was great.
But some funny things, like I said, my brother and I were obsessed with these movies. I'm pretty sure, I just don't remember seeing, I was kind of caught off guard. There's this scene where the Beastmaster approaches this, almost like a pond or something, and he's kind of like sneaking up on these two like girls that are just like bathing in the pond, and you see, it's straight up nudity. Now, keep in mind, this is rated PG, and you're seeing on screen straight up boobs.
And
I don't remember that.
Whenever you would see that be in as a kid for brief nudity, this is like full on two topless girls, and it just kind of stays there for a while.
Yeah, but dude, they don't warn you about that back in the day. I guarantee you that wasn't like on the back cover or anything. So that's why I think like we might have had like the TV version that we recorded or something. But even then, man, I guess I don't know. Maybe that was part of the reason why we loved it so much. But
Oh, yeah.
man, I just thought it was better. The story's cooler. The Beastmaster himself is kind of cool. At first, kind of rewatching it as an adult, I was like, you know, he's got this ferret that follows him around. I'm like, not really.
Yeah, well, that's
cool.
what. Yeah, Toto and Pogo, or Toto and Poto.
It's like, But then, you know, other animals kind of end up coming into the fray, like this awesome, like eagle, and, you know, that kind of thing. So it ends up being a lot cooler.
Yeah, I thought this was really cool. I think the reason that I don't know, it's weird. I just have a memory of not liking it because, so what I like about sort of that era and like fantasy movies is like, I like all like the magic and like wizards and like, you know, I love all that kind of stuff. And so I think as a kid, I didn't really gravitate towards this movie because, or this franchise really, because he's kind of more almost like a barbarian type, which I think they even say that in the beginning of the movie. And so, you know, instead of like your sort of warrior, your hero guy, instead of him being a little more modernized, and when I say that, I mean like in the arena of like fantasy sort of style and costuming, you know, he's pretty much wears like a loincloth the whole time, and he's like shirtless, which by the way, this dude is probably the most ripped dude you've ever seen. You know, I didn't lean into it, I think, because of that. But honestly, man, I got to say, dude, in rewatching this, I really like Beastmaster. It's really cool,
right? Doesn't it make you want to be a Beastmaster character in Dungeons?
The whole time I was watching it, that's all I could think of.
Me too.
Yeah, he's a great actor. I felt like the chemistry between all of the actors, it just felt like, you know, especially in comparison to Krull, it just felt like, man, I mean, the acting was so stiff and so just not good. Even though, you know, with Krull, you know, going back to Krull a little bit, even though I feel like the lead guy, I feel like he could have actually been pretty great. But I don't think the directing was good. I don't think the writing was good. You know, I think he was supposed to come across as like almost like an Errol Flynn type, like a little bit of like a swashbuckling type, more hero sort of.
Yeah.
And he was sort of like the British accent, so it was a little more like proper kind of. And I think he could have been great, but I just feel like none of the other cast, they just weren't working together. Whereas like with Beastmaster, it felt like these people were all friends outside of...
And the production value was just much higher, too. Like, even just scene for scene is just... And the fact that it came out and was probably filmed earlier. You know, I just feel like the quality of it just across the board was just much better. So it's, for me, and it sounds like for you, this one is the clear champion of this battle.
Yeah, definitely the clear winner. One thing I did find out about, because, man, the whole time I was listening to Krull, or watching Krull, whoever did like the music, the composer or whatever, I was like, man, this sounds like straight up John Williams. And for a minute I was like, this has to be John Williams, but it's not. It's actually a guy named James Horner. I looked it up. He is an American composer, conductor. He's orchestrated over 100 film scores. He did the music to Avatar, Titanic, Willow, and apparently he was kind of known for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and Star Trek III. He would Aliens, Wolfen,
Braveheart,
2001: A Space Odyssey. He was bad about like reusing his score. So like in Aliens, the action theme is actually the same as in Wolfen. He used the same score in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it was also in Willow and Field of Dreams. Were all like almost the same thing.
Jeez,
which is pretty funny. But it is weird because you definitely, I think Krull, you can see that they put a little more money into it. But honestly, I think the effects, are much better for Beastmaster.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of get an easy win there because they didn't have to have lasers flying around.
Yeah. Well, and then too, like the whole sort of last like quarter of the movie, they're in this weird like, and again, I mean, I bet this was, this cost a lot of money. It looks like they're in like an eardrum, like the whole, like they're inside like a big ear. It was like this huge set and stuff. And it just felt so misused a little. And the ending villain was, I thought he looked pretty cool. He's on the cover.
Yeah. There were some cool spots too. Like there was like this moment where there's that spider,
Yeah, that was cool. I like that.
That was kind of cool, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah, and the talking about like the pacing being so slow in those old movies. Boy, when he finally brings out this awesome weapon, this like spinning like star, and it has like knives at the end basically. I mean, he throws it. First of all, it's like spinning around, it's defying gravity, and it's spinning around and it's cutting through this wall so he can get in there to get the girl out. And I mean, I swear, dude, it did this for like 5 full minutes. and it just keeps going back to showing his face, and he's like holding out his hand like he's waiting on it to return. And then it shows the girl, and then she's viewing it from the inside, and she can see this light, like something spinning. And it literally does that for 5 full minutes.
What a waste.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, ugh.
Yeah.
But, it's tough because when we talk about these movies, a lot of us, our listeners, everybody, they might have an emotional attachment to some of these movies. And so they could say, well, I mean, no way, man, that movie's awesome. And I get it. Trust me. Whenever I try to rewatch old movies with my wife, immediately once we start watching, I'm like, oh yeah, it wasn't as good as I remember. But if you can kind of view it through the lens, I would just say these two pitted up against each other, and maybe it was an unfair matchup. And really, I think Krull kind of snuck in the list.
Well, dude, I had an emotional attachment to Krull because I remember it so fondly and thinking, I mean, I legitimately thought like, yeah, Krull is going to blow Beastmaster away.
So this week, I'm victorious.
Yeah, Beastmaster is definitely. Now, do we have the Beastmaster sequels?
No, not on the list.
I kind
of want to watch Beastmaster 2.
Man, I mean, I'm definitely going to watch it because I thought it was awesome.
It's pretty good, man. Beastmaster 3, you can go ahead and skip, though. It was like a TV only. It's not good.
Now, was it like much later?
Yeah, like late 90s.
Oh, wow.
Or mid 90s, maybe.
I mean, once it's...
Yeah, but Beastmaster 2, I think, only came out like a couple years later.
Yeah.
Like maybe like 88 or something like that. I don't know. Well, do you know offhand, or can you look what's who we got next? Because I can't
The next
remember.
one is The Dark Crystal and The Princess Bride, which I think is actually...
That's going to be
I think that's a good matchup,
there.
yeah.
Man, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Because I love both of those movies. Cool, man. Well, I think this is a good place for us to wrap it up. I think that if you are listening and you want to go watch one of those old movies, if you haven't seen The Beastmaster, I mean, I think it would be a pretty cool movie to watch. I mean, part of the reason it's one of the first battles really is I think it's probably less mainstream than a lot of these that we're going to be doing, including like next time when we talk about The Dark Crystal versus...
The Princess Bride.
Princess Bride, yeah. Speaking of Peter Falk, man, he's in the Princess Bride.
Right. Him and Fred Savage.
Yeah. Anyway, I think The Beastmaster is a cool one if you haven't seen it. You could probably skip Krull.
Yeah.
However, if you're super into Krull, then I'm sorry, and you should watch that then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I'm so sorry, but Krull it'll definitely let you down.
And sometimes it's, I think, smart to maybe not revisit those old ones that you have such fond memories of. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Well,
okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say thanks to everybody that continues to grab things from our merch store. Man, these things are flying off the shelves like hotcakes. Although I don't know any shelves that have hotcakes on them, but anyhow, it's exciting, man. The most popular items right now are the baseball tees to the long sleeve T-shirt type stuff, things that keep you warm, the hoodies, the sweatshirts, all that stuff is still available. So I think they've restocked buttons and stickers as well.
Oh,
so
cool.
If you are looking to get some That Would Be Rad merchandise, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to shop.spreadshirt.com/That Would Be Rad.
Well, cool. Well, if you want to get in touch with us, you want to talk to us, either send us a DM over at our Instagram page. That would be rad. We'd love all your comments, and we'd love to hear thoughts, opinions on your favorite movies, in the 80s fantasy face-off. We'll probably release the bracket when this episode releases.
Yeah.
Either do that, or if you have anything lengthier that you want to talk to us about, hit us up at our email at thatwouldberadpod@gmail.com. We love you. We thank you. Without you, this isn't possible. We appreciate all your support. And as always,
Be rad.
That's the way it goes. The way it You're my favorite song on the radio that's only playing sad songs. Well, even sad songs have to come to an end. And you always said our future would be a parade of flowers, but I guess it died even before it began. And that's the way it goes. The way it goes. The way it goes. The way it You were all black clouds in a time where I just needed some sunshine. You were already dead, for you became a ghost. You always said our future would be a parade of flowers, but now all that's left is a single rose. That's the way